Let's talk about the jighead minnow for bass and how to catch fish with LiveScope. In this video, I'll go through catches of bass with jighead minnow, showing the LiveScope screen in the video as well. We'll run through some gear, talk about the rods, reels, line, baits, and jig heads, and then get back into catches, show more on-screen LiveScope, and then I'll finish with full screen of LiveScope and talk you through some of the times where I don't catch the fish and what went right and wrong. So we had a major cold front here after New Year's in Texas, had a snowstorm, major front. The water temperatures went from the low 50s into low 40s, backs of creeks around like 41. Main Lake, you're looking, a lot of places were 45, 46. Then a couple warm, sunny days. The wind laid down. It got really sunny and slick. And I tried moving baits, was trying jigging creek channels and stuff. A lot of my favorite pre-spawn winter type patterns not working. It's just sunny and slick and bait moving around. That's really when this jig head minnow shines. And sure enough, today I kicked out there a little bit deeper. And as soon as I did, I found the bass out there and started getting on the fish right away. So we'll dive right into it. And you will notice that I'm talking in the background. My mics went totally muted, so I have no sound on here. I was talking to a blank camera, but I'll throw one more clip in here. You'll notice the boat running in the background. This is the one thing about offshore fishing that I don't like. It's a fun way to catch them on the jig head minnow, but watch the boat in the background. He's running on plane. It's the old bent rod pattern. As soon as I hook one up in my head, I see what's coming, but he stops running and then comes out and joins me. I mean, it's a public lake, whatever. But if you're trying to hide where you're catching them from tournament competitors and stuff, you can't do it with the jig head minnow. So getting into LiveScope clips, what I want you to notice in this first one, the fish were pretty aggressive for the most part at the beginning. These fish are moving towards me pretty fast. The hardest thing for me to do was to actually catch up to them on screen with my I'm using an 1/8 ounce bait, trying to hustle it up to them. Once I get it near them and they see it, you can see I keep trying to get it closer there. I'm above them now, but I'm still behind. They're not even aware of it. So I hustle it up with that rocket real fast and finally get it in front of them where I get their attention. And as soon as they see it, boom, they come up after it. And then I got them. But hardest thing was just trying to get it in front of those fish, and trying to lead them would have been a lot better instead of trying to catch up and get to them. That fish had a decent frame, but it was just really skinny. This next one you'll see here, a lot thicker on the screen. It's way out there. I spot him right away. I throw it to him when he's way down deep and just drop it like right on top of it. This fish is aggressive. It comes up pretty aggressively. And the trick here is when they're coming up like a missile, don't freeze and leave it. You want to hustle it away, play cat and mouse. And I've heard it described as you want to match the speed of the fish. So the faster he's coming at the bait, the faster you move it away. If he's barely moving towards it, you barely want to move it. But that fish came up really fast at it, so you need to stop it above the fish, not let it get down to it, and then start moving it away. And sure enough, I mean, that thing came up like a missile. Pretty nice quality one here. I just backed off the drag, have that light leader, but you're out in open water. You just back down the drag, let the rod do the work, and get a pretty nice chunky pre-spawner here. Nice pre-spawn fish right there. Let me talk about the gear really quickly, and then we'll dive right back into the catches. So this is what I caught all my fish on yesterday. It's the 4-inch Berkeley drip minnow. You can see it has that little flat tail there that you can see how well it flops back and forth. I was using the 1/8 ounce head with a 3-inch hook, and then I was using the violet vapor color, super translucent. You can see the hook there really well. That in that clear water, super bright, super slick, that seemed to be the deal. They wanted that. And the super slow fall, you kept it up above their head. I was using it on the 7.2 medium light fast action Fenwick Elite. Then I was using 8-pound test of that new Berkeley Sonar braided line. It's super smooth, super slim. It actually sinks better, it gets down a little better, and it casts those light baits really well. I've been using the prototype last season. This is on my Nico, and it for Nico rigs, wacky, real light jighead minnows and stuff, those 8th, 3/16ths, 1/16th and stuff. I really like that line. It casts really, really well and handles well, so it gets it out there. Using the rocket, I do like that for the forward facing. I can burn it back in. It's got a super fast ratio, so it allows me, if I miss it, to reel back in, throw right back in. I did try the drip shad, which has a little boot tail. It's like a little swim bait. That I tried a heavier head, the same head. They didn't want the swimming action though. They wanted to hover right over top of them. So that drip minnow with that little flat tail, that was the deal yesterday. And then I even tried smaller. I went to this was a 3-inch Berkeley Power minnow. I cut it down to like a 2-inch. It's like a crappie jig size, real small. I tried again a 1/4 and an 1/8. You can see on that rod I have, this is yellow Durabraid there. I like the high vis, that yellow, to see where your bait's at if you're trying to find it. Helps out. The Durabraid's strong. It's great for grass fishing and stuff, but I'll tell you what, in these light sonar baits, that Berkeley forward line is so smooth, it casts out really well. All right, so back to the fishing. This one, I actually miss one farther out, and as I'm starting to bring it back, then I see another one that's closer to the boat and start to play with him, hovered over the top of his head. See, I drop it right down to this fish, and pretty aggressive, even though he's pretty close to the boat. He's about, I guess, 40, 50 feet away from the boat, and then hits it. The fact that he's that aggressive, just sitting there that close, probably should have tipped me off on this one. And sure enough, he comes to the surface, and it's a stinking striper. I got in deeper water here. I'm close to the dam, and these open water fish are stripers. Now here's another tip off that you have. You're dealing with stripers, not bass. If you look at these, my boat's moving pretty fast. I was on the trolling motor searching. I'm over a mile per hour. You look at the on the top left there, it shows it, and these fish are cruising. They're moving pretty fast. You see, I'm hustling my bait to get it up to them, and just how fast they're swimming. That's typically a good sign that it's stripers. I mean, they just roam that open water, and they're just tearing around. And sometimes they'll be in wolf packs, sometimes they're in groups, but when they're just like flying around, that's typically stripers. And sure enough, you get that jig head near a striper, you're gonna find out for sure. These are hybrid stripers, but yeah, they're out there on the prowl. The one thing about stripers, if you're trying to learn live scope, it's a great way to do it. You just get a lot more bites from them if they're aggressive at all. They'll definitely bite. Now here's a case that I find the mega school. Look at all that bait there, about halfway back, and then out in the distance is a huge school, and those are bass. So I, of course, totally panic and miss them, and they're swimming like left to right, and I'm trying to stay on them, but they're moving, probably coming back over to that shad. And I miss them twice here. I mean, all you got to do when there's that many, just get it close to them. And of course, then I just choke. I can't get it there. I'm fumbling with my line. Like, get it out there, Tom. Come on, put it on top of him. Get him in this. There you go. Get him on scope. Okay, get the bait over top of him. Just get it close. Come on. They're just there. We go. Finally. Oh my gosh. Like that is when you see him and you just know you're gonna catch him. And it was kind of getting late in the day. The shad was pushing up to the surface. They were actively feeding. The loons were working and stuff, and not those ones typically aren't as big. I wish I had a swim bait though. That's when you have the swim bait on the deck. They're up high like that, and instead of the schoolies like that, the 2 and 3 pounders, you might get a great big one mixed in there. Now let's look at some just screen recordings, and these are things that when stuff goes wrong, or just the what happens when you're fishing a jighead minnow and fishing these fish, and they love to slap at it, even when there's multiple fish there. You see this one comes after it, he misses it, and his buddy comes up, he wants it, then the whole school's going after it. 2 times they hit me there and don't hook up, and then once they've swatted at it, well, you can keep it in front of them and it's game over. It's like they're wise to the game, and I just pull out of there. You can switch up bait sometimes, throw back, but once they're close to the boat and they've already hit it, it's over. Now this is something that can be good, but it's also bad. When you get fish around bait, you'll see that bait ball there at about 80 feet, and then there's the fish right underneath them. he's obviously feeding. There's a couple of them there. The problem is with all that bait, one, they're looking at all the bait, and two, it's hard for them to see your lure. And then you lose your lure in the bait ball, so you can't tell exactly where you're at. So this one's moving pretty fast, and then you see all of a sudden the bait comes out, and it's too low, and then it's away. Then he's away from the bait, and now he's too close to the boat, and it's just all screwed up. If the fish was out there by himself, or he was a little clearer from the bait ball, would have been easier. But the fact that he's so tightly up there and it's so close to the surface ended up being tough. And then I make a desperate cast when he's like under the boat. Every once in a while you catch him right under the boat, but then not usually. And then I pan around and you see, well, anytime there's that much bait, there's usually fish around it. So about 70 feet out, those are the ones chasing it. So I throw in there and like, okay, well, now I got him set up just right. I get my bait behind him. I don't drop it on him. I swim it up to him. And sure enough, they're interested. They see it, get it over top of their head, keep it above them, jiggle it, and then one comes for it, swats at it, and misses it. His buddy gets it. Oh, no, he doesn't. And I miss him, and now they're not interested. They get the tail, they just swat at it, and it's amazing how with that open hook you'll miss them, and then once they're gone, you can drop it down, totally over. You're just wasting your time. This one I was trying out a jerk bait. It didn't end up working, but you see that I drop it about 90 feet out there. It's that Berkeley Stunna, the 112 plus 2, so it gets deep fast. I needed to throw it deeper, though. It was already past him by the time I kind of got it down. You see the drawing power of it. One comes out there, but it would pull apart the school like it's doing here. I needed to get that to get closer and throw it past. Sometimes that works. Not today, though. And then I'll leave you with this one. I mean, here's another just beautiful school. Throw it out there. They're about 60 feet away. I throw it to 70, drop it out without splashing them, get it right over them. You do everything right. You jiggle it. You start to take it away from them. And, they're all interested. Everybody's coming for it. They hit at it. And there again, they, they miss it. You can see my line cut the water where one hits it and misses it. Another one follows it. Looks like a smaller one. Then he's not that convinced because his buddy's not there. And at that point, I just reel it in because, oh, it can be so frustrating.